This is episode 2 of Off-Road Independence. This podcast is brought to you by BeginnersFab.com, the site that teaches you how to make useful, interesting, and creative things with basic tools. Think you don't have the fabrication tools necessary to make what you need? Think again. BeginnersFab.com. This is Off-Road Independence, the podcast that talks about trail repair, vehicle modification, and gear selection, helping you become more independent in your off-road adventures. Hi and welcome to Off-Road Independence. I'm Eric McGrew, your host, and today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the makeshift repairs you can do out in the field. I've seen a number of them done, and I've had to do a few of them myself, so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to jump on in with something that I saw recently on Facebook. I wish I could find it again. I was looking for the poster who put it up so that I could lead you guys to it, but saw a gentleman use something really interesting that I hadn't really thought of. While he was out on the trail, he busted one of his trailing links on his axle, his rear axle, and that's kind of a showstopper. So what do you do with that? You know, I've seen guys use all kinds of stuff and that kind of junk. But this guy, he took his high lift and bolted it to his trailing arm link mounts. And while, I mean, clearly it's going to be a little sloppy, it's not going to be as tight as you'd like it to be for a trailing link. It was good enough to get him down off the mountain and get him home, and so he could repair it the correct way. That's pretty ingenuitive. To me, that's pretty cool. It's just something that, you know, he had around. It was something that he could use, and it was something that really could be beneficial for him. Now, when it comes to repairs on our vehicles, there's a lot of stuff that we can do that are makeshift. I mean, I've had to duct tape exhaust, which I do not suggest. It puts out fumes that are horrible, but it kept it up long enough for me to get where I needed to go, and I've had to do other stuff on the trail as well. So, you know, those are the kind of things that we can do, and I want you guys to keep sharing those with me. I'm going to keep mentioning that because I want you guys to be able to participate in all this stuff with me. And when we go across this information, you know, you never know what it is that will come up that you say, you know, I just never really thought about that. Another example of that is right now I'm running on my Trooper. One of the auxiliary belts, once again, I am not suggesting that, but until I find the second one at one of the local stores, that's what I'm running. And in fact, I've seen a couple of guys who have ran cords or rope or whatever, and if you can get it tight enough, you can actually run it and make it work to be able to get you down, once again, off the trail, hopefully home, off the mountain, or to your trailer, whatever you've got laying around. Maybe to the nearest auto parts store. And that kind of ingenuity is what's going to really give you some help when you're out and about. Now, when you're doing all this stuff, there is something to consider though, because let's take the guy that I was talking about on Facebook, for instance, that used a high lift jack on his trailing link, or his trailing arm. While that's really creative and really great, there's a major factor to that. Well, one is you have to make sure that you have the ability to take that stuff apart and put that stuff back together. And that really is something important to consider because you never know what's going to happen, even in daily driving. In my Trooper, I almost always keep a basic set of tools. You know, I have a hammer, I have sockets, ratchets, wrenches, all that kind of stuff, screwdrivers, at least the most basic, like a medium size Phillips and a medium, well, when I say medium size, I mean the length, medium length or standard length Phillips, standard length flathead. Try to keep at least a home carpentry hammer around. I have a couple of pair of vice grips with me. And, something that I've really found interesting that I carry with me at almost all times is I like to use the 10 millimeter or 8 millimeter or even 6 millimeter dynamic cords with the figure eights on them, because I have found those to be really, really creative. In fact, one of the friends of mine that I have in Chile, I noticed that one day he comes back and on top of his trooper, he's got a drive shaft mounted up on top of his rack, or, tied down on top of his rack, and find out that his front drive shaft had come loose and he took it off and put it up on the rack or something like that. And so he used one of those cords that he had laying around. So you never know what it is that you're going to find, what it is that you're going to need. And I've even met a few people who try to prepare a little bit more with things like carrying a few extra Heim joints or something like that. Even if they're not using Heim joints on their system at the moment, they try to carry some extra ones in case one gives out on them or something like that. And I mean, there's just a ton of tools that you could use that would be handy to have with you. And some guys who have pickups and that kind of stuff can carry that stuff. Not everybody's going to be able to do it. So if you can't, try to be the most reasonable possible. Like, for instance, when I had my Samurai, it had a weight limit of 500 pounds. There wasn't much I could do about it, including the people inside it. So you want to be a little bit more cautious about what you're carrying inside your vehicle as well, because it'd bottom out and all that kind of stuff. And bottoming out can be almost as bad as not having stuff to repair your Jeep with, because you can cause some serious damage if you're heavily bottoming out because you have too much stuff in your truck with you. But, basic sets of tools are really, really good. Tire repair is always good as well. You never know when you're going to need it, and it can really save you when you're out in the back country and that kind of stuff. And of course, there's always the debate of whether or not you should have a spare. That really kind of depends on if you're using a dedicated trail rig or if you're actually doing something more than just the trail rig, or, it's not dedicated trail rig, it's a daily driver. I always have a spare. It's not the exact same tire, nor is it the exact same size as the rest of my tires, but it's a daily driver, so I want to make sure that I have a spare on my car. Another thing that I'll say that is really, really a good idea is making sure that you have some way of keeping warm in case you get yourself stuck in an area where there's no signal and there's no help to be found and you just can't get your vehicle repaired. That would be like a blanket, maybe even an extra change of clothes, something like that. That's always good to have with you if you can. I personally carry with me a Dickies coverall, because a lot of times I'm in clothes and I don't want to get the inside of my vehicle dirtier than I have to. And once again, my rig is not an extreme off-road rig. And so I found that a lot of times the coveralls really keep me warmer, and they help me keep from getting everything inside my truck really, really dirty. So that's just a few little tools that you might want to think about at the moment. But that actually brings up to me a whole nother topic that we can talk about another day, and that I probably will get into, because there's just so much that you can think about needing or want, or, you start having to narrow it down a little bit, because if you're like me, you want to be prepared for absolutely every possible circumstance. And if you're like me, over time, you've gotten to where you needed more and more things repaired. And then the more things you repair, the more things that you realize, hey, that would be really spot on to have. You start loading and loading and loading, and all of a sudden you've got your whole garage inside your Jeep or your off-road vehicle. And that's not the idea either. I mean, at least not for me. I know some guys who carry a lot of stuff with them, but I'm not that kind of guy. I'm really kind of a minimalist. The minimal for what I need it to do and the minimal for the weight that I have to carry. So, there's ways to think about everything, and I'm not saying that my way is the right way. I'm just saying these are some of the ideas that run through this crazy head of mine. And I know that some other people have been debating these same questions. So let me know. What do you think? Is it worth carrying, for instance, a spare? What kind of jacks do you think you should carry? Because, of course, there's always those who say, no, you should carry the high lift and you should always have a high lift and it's the greatest thing ever. And then you have those who say high lifts are nothing but dangerous and don't really benefit you in the trails. It's better to carry a really good bottle jack with some boards. There are guys out there who are actually carrying floor jacks for garage use because they say they're the most capable, the most sturdy, and that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying anybody's wrong or right. I find that a mix of maybe 2 or 3 of those together is better. I like my high lift, but I'm not saying that I want to use it all the time or that I find it to be the safest all the time. So personally, I carry a high lift with a bottle jack, and I use those together. I try to take the weight of the body off with the high lift, and then I use the bottle jack to lift up the axle, change the tire, and then off I go again. Granted, it's more weight, but my safety in that case, I feel is more important than the amount of weight I'm carrying with me. So, these are just kind of ideas that hopefully will help guide you guys in a way of thinking as well. And you know what? If you're not sure about it, try it. I mean, let's face it. If you've got a lift on your vehicle and you're using a high lift jack, you're probably going to have to get that high lift pretty high. I mean, I have the Daihatsu it's semi-modified. I'm just running standard Gabriel shocks in the back. I think they have 10-inch stroke or something like that. And I have the mounting points raised 2 inches from the factory standard so that the rear axle drops 2 inches more than normal. And I got to tell you, if I'm trying to crank that thing up with a high lift jack, I'm getting close to the top of my 5-foot jack before it starts to lift the tires, enough to get them off and put new ones on. And that's with me just running 30-inch tires. I'm not even running anything extreme. So the higher you get on the high lift jack, the more difficult it is to keep it stable and safe. And so I start using what is the bottle jacks under the axle to lift it up, and I keep the weight off the body like I need it to. So, just try those kind of ideas and test it out. See if you like it, see if you don't like it. Of course, you have to determine if you have the space in your rig for it as well. And with all that kind of stuff, you may find that there's something new that you like and you just work it out better, and it's really beneficial for your next trail rig, and it may actually make your overall experience off-roading even more enjoyable. So once again, I'm Eric. This is Off-Road Independence, and I hope you guys continue to come back to see what we're talking about, and even more so, I hope you guys continue to listen so that you're encouraged enough to email me and to make sure that you're part of this conversation as well. You can hit us up at our email over at ericmcgrew.tv. That's ericmcgrew.tv, and the email is eric@ericmcgrew.tv. We hope to hear from you. Like to hear what kind of projects and stuff you've got going on, your stories as well, and never forget, I may just hit you up and ask you for an interview. So until next time, be safe and have fun out there in your rigs.